Dave Dunn, one of the interim ministers here, and I'm going to talk to you about a few things. First, unless you've been living under a rock this week, you may have noticed that the Pope is in the United States. He wasn't supposed to be in Pittsburgh, but after taking over an hour and 15 minutes to get here with all the roadblocks, I thought he might be running in the Great Race, but I don't think so. But anyway, yes, he's been in town, and I don't know how you feel. I don't know how you feel about past popes. You probably had disagreements with him, and maybe you have disagreements with this pope. But I probably am not going out on a limb to say that this pope is kind of refreshing to Catholics, non-Catholics, and even many UUs. I know it's good to hear that. I feel that way, and I'm glad you do too, actually. It's really, maybe we can do something now, work together. But anyway, that's how I feel about the Pope, and I'm trying to think why we find he's so refreshing. And maybe it's because he's written these encyclicals on the environment. It's probably something very near to dear to us. And he says things like, "Who am I to judge? And pray for me." He's asking people to pray for him. I think that's one reason we kind of find him refreshing. I often wonder what he would think of our Unitarian Universalist principles. I'd like to think that if he read them, he'd probably nod and assent. And they might even resonate with him. But I would think that he would want to know a bit more. Now, I think they might resonate with him because I think the values espoused in our UU principles and our way of life that our UU principles kind of point towards would I think he'd agree with them. I think he'd resonate with that. But why would he want to know more? I think what he would want to know, how do our Unitarian Universalist principles, how do they manifest in the real world? How do we make them manifest in the world? What's our praxis? What do we do to live our Unitarian Universalist principles? I don't think he'd get that from reading them. So how do we do our work? So if the Pope knew some of the common criticisms of Unitarian Universalists, and sometimes people do criticize us, yeah, they do. But if people would know some of the common criticisms, he might think that although we might share some of the same values, he might think that we're actually very different. So here's a criticism I've heard of Unitarian Universalists. Now, I'm not saying I buy all this, okay? I'm just saying I've heard it. You can make your own judgment. Okay, here's the criticism. Unitarian Universalists talk a lot about social justice, but they don't do anything. Again, you may not buy that. I don't really, because I know a lot of UUs who do a lot of on-the-ground work. And people in this room actually do a lot of work regarding social justice. But it is a criticism that I've heard, like it or not, fair or not. So if this is a criticism, how would we be different from the Pope? David Brooks, writer from the New York Times, wrote an article about the Pope this week. He writes, throughout his life, Francis' core message has been anti-ideological. As Austin Iverick notes in his biography, Francis has consistently criticized abstract intellectual systems that speak in crude generalities, instrumentalize the poor, and ignore the rich, idiosyncratic nature of each soul and situation. He's written that many of our political debates are so abstract that you can't smell the sweat of real life. Now, this coming year is election year. You're going to be hearing a lot of ideology, a lot of policy, Sadly, 90% of the ideology and policy that you'll hear will almost have nothing to do, nor will anyone care about what that does to 90% of the people those policies will affect. You won't hear that in our political debates. David Brooks in his article continues by stating that Francis's great gift is learning through intimacy. Not just to study poverty, but to feel it as a personal experience from the inside. Pope Francis says, the thing the church needs most today is nearness, proximity. Heal the wounds, and you have to start this from the ground up. I could not agree more. Ideology versus intimacy. Policy versus proximity. I would guess that those who criticize Unitarian Universalist social justice efforts think that we dwell far too much in ideology and policy and not in intimacy and proximity. Policies aren't bad in and of themselves. Policies are not bad, but it's how they're grown. It's how they're grown that makes all the difference. Are they policies that result from top-down ideology, or are they policies that result from the bottom up, intimacy and proximity? I spoke about this very thing last month in a sermon that I called Trickle Up Justice. And if you weren't here, the text is online on our website. Well, this year at First Unitarian Church in Pittsburgh, we are offering you the opportunity to get intimate, to get proximate, to get you in contact with the real sweat of real life. And we're calling this Neighborhood Connections Ministry. Neighborhood Connections Ministry. The participants in this ministry will agree to volunteer their time 2 hours a week to a nonprofit of their choice, like East End Cooperative Ministry, like any homeless shelter, food pantry, be a hospice volunteer, be a big brother or big sister, or be a mentor for somebody who's incarcerated, or somebody who's addicted to drugs. The choice is yours, but your commitment is 2 hours a week. Now, I did this my first year in seminary, 8 hours a week for a whole year. And what I discovered, and I talked about this in my sermon last month, what I discovered is that during the year, I found that I had these invisible barriers between myself and those who I was serving. Barriers that I didn't know existed. And it was really disheartening to see those barriers for the first time. And it took a lot of work to start to dismantle them as well. And that's what I did during the course of that year. Actually, when you stop the work, your mind starts to build those barriers back up, so you have to keep working at it. Anyway, so that's what we're going to do this year. We're moving barriers. We're going to get intimate. We're going to get proximate through Neighborhood Connections Ministry. And I would love for you to be part of it. Join us. It's going to start next Sunday at 12 o'clock after service. That'll be an orientation for the program. If you can't make it, please see me. We will plug you in. We want to get you involved. You can also sign up online. On the Adult Faith Development page, you can sign up, register online. So, in the Pope's address to Congress on Friday, he referred to the European refugee crisis and the North American immigration crisis. And he said that we need to view the refugees and immigrants as real persons. See their faces. Listen to their stories. And that's what we want to do with Neighborhood Connections Ministry. See their faces. Listen to their stories. You don't have to solve anything. Just be present with those who are not like us. So thank you, and hope to see you next week.
Thank you, Dave. I'm so pleased that we're doing that. Our hymn's number 34, Though I May Speak with Bravest Fire. You'll find it in your gray hymn book, Singing the Living Tradition.